Hey, folks, welcome back to the OneCast with Ben, Pete, and Trey. We're going to break down the National Professional Fishing League, so stay tuned.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's going to be a bad day.
Hey, guys, thanks for joining us. This is Trey here with the OneCast, and I'm joined with Ben and Pete over here to my left, probably to your right. Hey, guys, how are we doing today?
Good.
Good?
Yeah, doing well. How about you, Ben?
Terrible.
Terrible.
You want to know why?
Yeah.
I'm not fishing.
That's true. That's true. We were just talking about that. It's extremely cold out here in North Carolina, but we wanted to take this time to break down the National Professional Fishing League. I know in the last couple episodes, we talked about some of the rules changes going on within the national level events. We talked about what we'd add and what we'd take away to some of those tour level events. But this time we're going to break down the National Professional Fishing League. And hey, in my opinion, I think they got something great going on here. What do you guys think?
They are stepping up their game. If you haven't heard, right, they now have a $100,000 purse, well, $100,000 prize to the winner of each of their events. Their championship will be $250,000. They're paying what, down to 40 places?
Yeah, I believe so.
And I think the application, well, as of recording, it's still open.
Yep.
So if you want to get in on that, the other big change they made too is they dropped the entry fees down to like $5,200.
Yep, that's
is that
right.
Yeah.
So that's just over maybe $33,000 a year. So they dropped the entry fees, raised the actual prizes, and they've got some great lakes. They got some sticks over there, and I'm looking forward to it. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, it's exciting, man. $100,000, so you're competing with Bass Pro and the elites for payouts now. Fishing some different bodies of water that they don't go to, which is cool. Obviously, there's a few that cross over, but yeah, it's what is today? December 18th or 19th. So if you're listening to this, check the website. They may still be taking applications, like you said. As of right now, they are. If you're looking to step up and you have some money to invest in yourself, and you think you can compete, $32,000 investment could turn into $100,000.
I tried telling the wife, I'm just going to leave OneCast behind. I'm going to take my money and go fish in NPFL, but I wasn't allowed to do that.
That's not what's going to happen. So OneCast is going to sponsor us, and then we'll go fishing. And speaking of OneCast, Ben, why don't you talk to them real quick about OneCast?
Yeah, so this podcast, this forum here is presented by OneCast Fishing. So if you want to join the snagless revolution, what we did is we took your traditional jig, but we added an EWG offset hook to it. So no more weed guards, no more exposed hooks. You can rig your plastics weedless. We call them snagless because you get snagged up a whole lot less with them. We can all attest to that personally up here, as well as anglers across the country. So if you want to join the snagless revolution, go to onecastfishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast at checkout. You'll save 10%, and you'll go catch some big ones.
Awesome, Ben. Appreciate that. And I know Pete and I have been fishing the snagless jig, so we're definitely pleased with it. And we've been getting a lot of great reviews across the board. So let's break down the National Professional Fishing League. And what I would like to consider, this really is the working person's fishing league, right? The way that they have this set up, this is their third season, right? And they ran into some of those road bumps along the way, but every business runs into hurdles and road bumps and stuff like that. But what I think they have going on here is pretty fantastic. One of the things I want to mention is how spread out their tournament circuit is. And I really think that speaks to meeting the demands of the anglers who have full-time employment outside of the fishing industry, right? So last year they didn't have a championship event. This year they do. We're going to break down some of the numbers real quick, like Ben and Pete talked about. $5,200 entry fees, no entry fee championship, which is still to be determined where that's going to be located. 130 anglers who get to fish all 3 days of the event. It's a drive-through weigh-in, which is really cool. I like that format. It makes for good TV. And it keeps the fish in the boat until they get to the scales. They don't have any co-anglers on their tours, and they do have live coverage. And if you look at their YouTube channel, they put almost the entire tournament on YouTube, which if you like watching fishing like I do, it's a great opportunity, especially if you're a fair weather fisherman. You sit back, relax, and drink a cold beverage and watch that fishing league. So pretty cool tournament circuit they got there. I think there's going to be some good things to come. Let's break down their 2023 season. Pete, you want to hit it off on where they're going to start?
Before we get started, I actually want to mention one thing. Trey, you mentioned the working man tournament, and I think it's the most working man tournament you're going to get of like the major levels. Yes, we know it's expensive to get into it still, but I think the big point of this is that the events there's only 6 of them. So those last, and they're extremely spread out. So that you have one event that's basically a month apart between each other, but the rest of them are usually 6 weeks, 2 months apart. So you have the ability to go home, spend time with your families. If you have your own, if you work, if you have your own business or whatever you do for work, you can knock that out. So it gives more flexibility for the anglers that way. So I just wanted to mention that we also understand it's expensive, but if you're serious about fishing and you want $100,000 payout, you're going to have to pony up a little bit, but it is spread out, so it gives anglers the opportunity to.
Yep. And if you look at the field, there's a lot of self-employed guys and business owners that do fish it that would have to sacrifice their business life or their way of life to potentially try to chase some of the other tours. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they're starting off in March, 2nd through 4th, going to a lake that a national level event like this hasn't been to in a long time. Lake Amistad, Texas.
Biggins.
That is going to be a slugfest. I'm not super familiar with the lake other than I've seen videos of them catching toads down there. But, being that deep in Texas, I don't know when the spawn's going to happen down there. Obviously, we all know Florida, the spawn can happen anywhere between December, March, sometimes April, depending on weather. I assume it's not necessarily that unpredictable down there just based upon geography, but I don't know if that would be peak spawn, post spawn. I don't know how that's going to turn out and the weather is going to do to it, whether it's going to, it's all situational. But
yeah.
It'll be.
Did you just make that up?
Situational.
Yeah. I like it.
It's a long trip down there for those guys too.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't know a lot about Amistad. I did pull a fun fact about that lake. At least what I could find is the lake record bass was caught in 2005, and it was over 15 and a half pounds for a largemouth, or black bass is what they call them. So I think you're going to get both. I think you're going to get maybe some spawners. I think you're definitely going to get some post spawners down there in that part of Texas. But it's just like any other national level event. Usually a lot of them start in Florida, and they have like first two tournaments in Florida. MPFL has their first 2 tournaments in Texas. So what are your thoughts on Amistad, Pete?
I don't know that the weights are going to be as high as we hope they're going to be. That lake, like Fork and the other Texas lakes, is very up and down depending on water levels and things like that. I got the opportunity to talk to John Cruz on Friday for quite a bit at an event, and he talked about when Bass went there the first time. He was talking about his first day of practice, and he was just rigging. So he rigged up, and he was just going to throw a Cinco around to see what he could get. And he's like, I wasn't even near a brush pile or anything, and I rigged the Cinco up, and I dropped it literally at the side of the boat just to see how it looked in the water. He goes, and I let it fall, gave a little twitch, and he was like, man, that looks great. And whoop, he said a 3-pounder come from out of nowhere and just ate it. And he's like, I wasn't even on structure. And it was just an absolute hammer fest that first time they went down there. But they went a few years, and weight started to fall.
Yeah.
So you never know. You have to keep in mind, too, with the NPFL, it is only a 3-day event.
Yeah.
So
if you look at local tournaments, the weights aren't huge. They're still catching good fish. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be what we remembered when we saw the elites and stuff fishing there, where it was, a century belt over 4 days plus. But there's going to be some good fish caught. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to see him go back down there. Yeah, like I said, it's a long way. It's pretty much on the border of Mexico, if I remember correctly, down there towards Falcon and stuff. So
it's way down there.
Yeah, it's a long trek, especially with the MPFL. Their anglers are pretty spread out from Michigan, Ohio, New York, through the traditional southern, let's call them traditional southern fishing states, where we see a lot of like the elite anglers and stuff settle. So long trip for those guys to go out there and practice for a few days before and then fish a 3-day event. So it'll be interesting.
I know I'm going to be watching it. It's a new lake. We haven't seen live coverage on that lake. I don't know if I've ever seen live coverage on that lake, but it'll be pretty interesting.
Depending on what they do, it may end up on my bucket list.
It could
one of these days. We're talking about the NPFL earlier. about how the workman's how spread it out. This is the ones. Actually, take that back. That's the next two events. But we can just jump in the event number 2, which is also in Texas, which is about 6 weeks after the first one, and that's at Wright-Patman, and that's April 20th to 22nd. So they were there last year.
They
right?
were.
Year before. First year. They didn't fish it last year.
Oh, no?
No, they fished it the first year.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we looked it up. They fished it the first year. They went somewhere else last year, and now they're going back to Wright-Patman.
Is that a muddy water lake?
Man, I'm not going to claim to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw Keith Carson fishing Wright-Patman. I'm pretty sure.
I feel like it's a stained lake.
Was it a buckbrush lake?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So if it sets up and the lake is high, I mean, you can definitely assure that people are going to be getting on that flip and bite down there. But I don't know how much forward-facing sonar is going to play a role in Lake Amistad or Wright-Patman. But if it does,
I think they were close to 60 pounds last time they fished Wright-Patman over 3 days for the wind. So
That's pretty good. I mean,
yeah,
40 pounds
53
a
to
day.
60 somewhere in there. So it's not going to be bad bags.
yeah,
It just depends on the weather and how it sets up that time of year. I know it's kind of mid to late April. That's like prime spawn for us here in North Carolina. So down there, it should be post spawn, and we know how it is, right? Sometimes they get up in the, especially the water side, like you mentioned, they get up in the brush and all. You can fish shallow, but sometimes they pull out quick.
yeah.
And as we get later in the year, we start looking, and it just goes for all the tours. We start looking at tournaments in May, June, July, August. Typically, we can predict based upon where they're at, whether they're going to be an offshore or shallow. But these early events, you just never know sometimes.
No,
Yeah.
it could be everything. I mean, you look at Amistad the beginning of March, you could potentially have fish in all 3 phases.
Oh, you will, I guarantee. I mean, you can fish offshore during the spawn anywhere in the country and catch fish. But
I think it's fair to say though, Wright-Patman's going to be post spawn end of April,
Yeah.
unless some crazy cold winter hits Texas. I know they're getting a little bit of cold weather, but they should be spawned out and post spawned by then.
And for any of the viewers or any of the listeners, if you have history on Amistad or Wright-Patman, drop a comment or shoot us a message or something like that. We're interested to know because we're up here in the Carolinas. I haven't fished down there. I don't know if any of you guys fished down in the Texas region.
no.
I've heard great things about Choke Canyon. I've heard great things about Amistad, obviously Lake Fork, Staple Lake. But that is kind of cool that they're going to Amistad, a place that doesn't really get touched too much from the national level. They're going back to Wright-Patman. So 2 Texas lakes that aren't Lake Fork. So I think that's going to be pretty exciting. And then they move on another month in between those, which they're coming up to our neck of the woods.
Yep, Santee.
Lake Marion,
It
right?
makes sense that the short breaks in their schedule is the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
You're trying to hit those largemouth before the water gets hot. So
that's 25, 27 May. I don't have a calendar in front of me. That's either Memorial Day weekend or like the weekend right before or after. Depends on how the calendar falls. So
I don't think they would do it more. It's probably the weekend before or the weekend after.
yeah, I'd have to look at the calendar to see what day Memorial Day is on. But what is interesting with that, because we know in the Carolinas that period, that heat wave switches on
Yep.
right about that time. And the elites did go to Santee last year, and there were 2 century belts out of the elites. I think 105 pounds was the top for Santee. But that was during the spawn. They were catching spawning fish. Santee's interesting. Because there's a lot of, it's a dangerous lake because it's really wide. There's a lot of stumps, especially on the northern end. You can tear up your lower unit, but there's a lot of offshore fishing too with all the humps and structure and brush piles that's been, that's all over the 2 lakes down there. So it will be interesting to see what they do in May. I predict offshore post spawn.
Yeah, for the most
100%.
part.
I think they're going to be
shallow.
chewing. They're going to be hungry. You're going to get some sacks at Santee over a 3-day period with 130 anglers. All 3 days, you're going to get some big ones.
You think we'll see 90 pounds?
In 3 days, I think we'll see 80 pounds.
Yeah.
So okay, that's 25 pounds a day. That equals a century belt.
I
If
think
you
you
would
can
over
see
4
80
day.
pounds.
Yeah, I could see 80 pounds for sure.
90, if it was spawn, absolutely. But post spawn, offshore, fish are a little skinnier.
How
Yeah.
awesome would that be to catch 30 pounds 3 days straight?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
awesome.
I've never done it, so it'd be fantastic
Yeah.
if one of us were to do it. But I think if Keith Carson is still in the field, which I think he is, I think he's going to be someone to look out for on that event. It fits his style. It's that flipping, cypress trees. Yeah, they don't have a lot of those in Florida, but it can be a shallow water game. Any point in time is Santee. We don't know what the weather's going to hold. But another fun fact: Santee Cooper, 1949. Over a 16-pound largemouth were pulled out of that lake. I don't think we're going to see that again, but if we do, that's going to make national news. Hopefully international news.
There's some big ones.
There's some big ones down there.
I'm pretty sure a double digit was caught with the elites last year.
Yeah, I think they had a 10.
Yeah.
10 plus. 10, 11. Something.
Anything 5 or over is respectable. So, but I think you're going to see some big sacks come out of Santee. And heck, I think I might drive down there for that weigh-in. I think
we should plan on doing setting up a podcast down there.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think. Should we set up a podcast down there at Santee Cooper? We're not going to drive all the way down to Texas, but Santee's right in our back door.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 hours from us. So, last year the plan was, but we didn't get to because of getting ready, producing product and going to ICAST and all, and launching the Snagless Jigs. But the plan was, and maybe we can do this year, is that we can watch the live event over the tournament weekend, and then that Monday we can go out there and find those hot spots and get on them.
What do you mean? You're talking about stealing all their spots?
Absolutely.
It's public fishing water. There's no such thing as theft.
Yeah, there's no secrets in fishing.
So then they go from South Carolina. They make a big jump up north though, and then they move to Gary Atkins' neck of the woods.
2 months off between.
2 months off, and then they jump up to mine and Pete's neck of the woods, fish in Saginaw Bay, Michigan. And if I'm not mistaken, that is going to be both a largemouth and smallmouth event. I think we saw John Sukup in the reeds flipping basically onto the land and catching largemouth. Then we saw Gary Atkins offshore smashing the smallies.
Is that the one Scott Siller one? He was all offshore.
Yeah, Scott Siller. Yep.
And they're going earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, by almost, I think it's about 2 weeks.
So there should definitely be I would think a greater mixture involved.
Yeah.
I don't know how Sukup was catching those fish he caught. I mean, he literally had to be flipping into like an inch and a half of water.
He was. If you saw him on live, or if you watched the recap on YouTube, I mean, he literally had his aluminum boat, his Express, buried in the reeds, and he was just punching right through those things and catching largies. So it was pretty cool.
Aaron Martin started that.
Did he?
Remember? Yeah, he called it birding.
Birding?
Yeah, so his theory, a little history here, was, all those red-winged blackbirds birds and things would nest in the reeds.
Yeah.
So those baby birds had to fall into the water.
Oh.
So he started that all, pulling up to the edge of those reeds, and then he would throw like a 3/4 ounce flipping weight with a black creature bait onto it into the reeds and basically just listen. And he'd hit the water and you'd hear, and he'd set the hook, and you're not even fighting him through water. He was just horsing him out with who knows what pound braid he was using, but he would just drag him through the top of the reeds to the boat.
That's interesting. Like, being from that area, I never thought about the red-winged blackbirds like nesting in those reeds and those cattails and stuff like that, but that makes sense. Like, I don't see them down here. Do you guys see them down here?
There are a few, but not like them up north. But yeah, if you look it up on he has there's videos of him in that on YouTube. Rest his soul. We lost him last year, but man, the stuff that guy would think of, and that was one of them. He called it birding, and that was his exact. He said these birds are in here nesting. The babies have to fall out, and the bass will eat them. And he caught a sack in a tournament doing that.
Man,
Looks like we need to make some bird baits.
Yeah, right.
What are your thoughts on OneCast bird baits? So Saginaw Bay, Michigan, and then they take about a little over a month off, and then they move into, which I think is cool how the MPFL does this. They're rolling into the fall, right? They're rolling their tournament circuit into the fall, and they go from Michigan back down. I guess that would be Southwest, right? Eufaula, Oklahoma, right? And they're there the 28th through the 30th of September. So I don't know how Oklahoma is during September, but I know fishing in the Carolinas is questionable during the fall transition and the lake turnovers. But Eufaula, Oklahoma, did they fish that last year?
One of the tours did, I believe.
Okay.
Well, one of them fished Eufaula. I don't remember if it was the Alabama one or the Oklahoma.
Confuses me.
But you're right. as late September, early October. I have fished in the Midwest in the Ozarks regions, which is probably the closest any of you all have fished to that in Oklahoma. So that time of year, very similar. You're gonna have the fall transition. Who knows?
Yeah, that one's
I personally hate fall fishing. It's my worst time of year, and my theory on it is that the fish can be anywhere, especially if there's a thermal high in the lake, and they disappear. Unlike the spring, there's no biological need to go shallow. So if there's bait out deep, they could be anywhere on the lake.
That's the thing in the fall, like the bait gets so spread out that you don't get those big wads of bait. And
which is why when you look in 2020 during COVID year, when the elites on Bass had to reschedule the events, and you look, they went to Guntersville in either September or October, and the weights you saw at Guntersville was significantly less than when they went back, like just 6 months later when they went back in the spring or early summer. I don't remember if it was an April or May event. And, so the weights won't be as high in September as, if they would have held this in the spring. But that adds a challenge to, and it's a different type of fishing. It's, in some ways, I want to say well, I think we'd agree it's more difficult to catch fish in the fall. So if you can come out on top and still put together and with the fish being so spread out, if you can put together a good pattern or find the right schools, to me, it's a little more impressive than going to a lake in like May when they're definitely stacked up in massive schools.
Yeah. And there's a reason why these national level circuits like put on these events at the times and locations that they do. It makes for good television. It's not going to guarantee, but you're going to have the probability of catching a good sack is way better than it is in the fall time, right? That's just a reality. So that's their stop number 5.
And that's what we have. That's all we know for now.
That's all we know.
So
stop 6 and stop 7.
Yeah, I think we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we'll all give our predictions on where we think 6 and 7 are going to be.
All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So we just took a second and pulled up the schedule again to double check, and it looks like MPFL just updated their schedule. So actually, if you go online now, the dates will actually include all the practice periods. But stop 6 has been identified. It's now Lake Lanier in Georgia from the actual tournaments the 26th to 28 October. I don't know how I feel about Lanier. It's a spotted bass lake.
I like it.
I don't know. I get spotted bass lakes. They're fun to catch.
Some giant spotted bass in Lake Lanier.
I like it. I mean, you got largies playing majority of the role, and then you got a smallmouth tournament, and then now you got some spots.
There was just some pros filming some content for their rod company that had it was almost a 22-pound bag of just spots, like yesterday.
I mean, that's good.
If they're catching,
I guess I just
20-pound spot bags.
I guess I just remember people calling Lanier like the Dead Sea.
It's a lot different than what it used to be. The spots have really taken hold, and they're catching big ones. It's a what is it? The blueback herring or whatever.
Blueback herring lake. Yeah.
Oh, that's a live scope lake.
So live scope, lots of really good top water action on that lake too.
Especially that time of year.
But yeah. They're going to be. I actually think that'll be a really fun one as a viewer.
Yeah,
and a fish because you're going to have fall transition, and we know how those herring lakes can be. If you find the right school,
top water,
you could
baby,
be smashing them top water.
All right, so let's break this down real quick. So, yes or no? Amistad, live scope. Yes or no?
No.
Wright Patman, live scope.
Maybe.
Santee?
Yes.
Yes.
Saginaw Bay?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Eufaula, Oklahoma?
It'll be a mixture.
Lanier?
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we got the 6 stops broken down. Our assessment is it's a pretty good season for the MPFL. 2023, nice and spread out. They lowered their entry fees. You got 130 anglers across the board. You got diversity in there with the different species of bass that they're going to be catching. You got live coverage, $100,000 championships or $100,000 winnings per event, and a entry fee free championship, which is still to be determined. Correct?
Yeah. Stop number 7, championship.
So championship.
Top 40 anglers and points make it, no entry fee, $250,000 to the winner. I don't know what the total purse is on that one. I don't know that that's been announced, but they did announce the $250,000 to the winner.
It's a lot.com.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
a
you're
payday.
looking at the classics. 300,000 is what Christie won last year. So you're right. You're right there with what everybody looks as the top level of professional bass fishing.
which is awesome.
Yep.
Especially for whoever wins that. When we're looking at the schedule here, the last Lanier is the 26th to 28 October. Let's be realistic. They haven't published a date for the championship, but it's got to be the first or second week in November, because then you start pushing to Thanksgiving, and I don't think they're going to do it in holiday time, Christmas time. So it's either the first or second weekend of the month.
What if they push the championship to next year? What if it's like the Classic where their championship is in the early stages of 2024?
I could see them doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
And they
But
push it down in like a Florida lake or something like that.
I don't know that they will, because they need to guarantee the field's going to be
Sure.
the same.
Two things I want to know. Two things.
Let's hold it before we go. Let's assume it's going to be November.
Okay.
We're going to get Trey's 2 points, but when he's done, we're going to talk about where we want to see them fish in November.
Oh, that was going to be one of them.
Oh, I got one. So one, where do we want to see them fish in November? True.
And two, what is that shield going to look like?
Giant.
I mean, how do you get bigger than the regular, tournament shield that they have in the AOI, the big gold shield?
They need like a full night shield.
Is it going to be like Captain America? Is the angler going to be able to carry it on his arm? Or
That'd be awesome, because you get the championship belt.
Yeah.
Right, with the Century Club, where they come in with an actual shield.
That's right.
That'd be awesome.
The blue trophy, iconic.
I'd mount that shield on the bow of the boat.
Absolutely.
For the next season.
That would be
like
a Viking ship. has
Exactly.
there. Yeah.
That's what I would do.
So
where
look
do
at
they
the
want-
trophies, though. Iconic with the blue, elites. The red MLF is sort of like a similar shaped trophy.
Yep.
The MPFL set themselves apart with that big old shield. That
They really
give their
did.
Winners of events. I
They
think
really
it's
did.
one of the cooler looking trophies out there for. That's something you see like a Angler of the Year win in your local club, where they have the trophy they pass around every year.
That's right. Yeah, because we can't afford to keep buying them.
No, you get.
So where do we want to see them fish? If in fact they fish at the tail end, but before the holidays in 2023, where do you want to see them fish, Ben?
Well, before we name lakes, and
Sharon
we're keeping
Harris.
you guys less. Yeah, Sharon Harris, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
That's a no for me.
But so we're assuming it's the first couple weeks in November, and they are on Lake Lanier the last weekend in October. So you think about travel and how far they can go. So unfortunately, I think that probably eliminates a lot of the western places. At least for me, I don't think logistically they'll make that work, even though maybe I would love to see them go out west. But if I had to be realistic, November, honestly, I might take a cop out. I might say something like Okeechobee, because there is a chance that there'll be some spawning fish, which means, there's fish shallow all year in Okeechobee. It's a grass lake. It's probably the warmest water left in the country at that point. So I would probably lean something Florida that way, because the drive, it's not terrible from Georgia, assuming it's a quick turnaround. So yeah, that's what I probably have to go with, is go to the Big O.
Thinking the chain or just the lake itself?
I mean, the chain.
Isn't Okeechobee part of the Kiss Me chain or?
No.
No.
Well, I think a canal actually in the river, actually you could technically go from one of
But
the
you're
other.
saying they're just going to fish the waters of Okeechobee.
Yeah, because if to go up the, it's been a long time since I looked at the map, because I was curious to see how far you can go down some of those canals and rivers, but it's a long ways.
I mean, you can see the lake from space. It's pretty
big.
It's pretty big.
That'd be an interesting one.
Okeechobee, absolutely.
In November,
Yeah.
a little punch in, swim jig action.
The only thing I would think, what would potentially make it either really great or not, is at the tail end of hurricane season, right? Like hurricane season, what is it? August, September, October?
technically it runs through November 1st.
November, right? So you're running a gamble there, like down in Florida.
You are in Lanier too, though. I mean,
That's true. That's true.
you get one that comes up through Florida. That lake could be muddy and 6 feet high and change everything if the right storm comes through. But yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't know that you can take that into account. Weather is part of fishing, right?
True.
Look
True.
at their tournament last year, and I don't remember if it was the Tennessee River or where they were, but
Cumberland, I think.
Cumberland, that was it.
Yeah.
They got all that rain. It was like 10 feet high, and
They canceled. I think it was a 1-day derby. They only
they
fished
canceled
one
or
day.
2 days, and
Yep.
it made it either a 1 or a 2 day derby. But
Yeah.
I mean, so weather, you can't predict that.
So Ben calls Okeechobee. Folks, let us know what you think. Pete, what do you think? Going from Georgia?
Where I really want them to go, I'm with Ben. I don't think they'll go because of travel.
Where do you want him to go?
I'd want to see him like on the California Delta. I think would be awesome.
That would be awesome. But
So I'm going to stick with the Delta, and I'm going to say Louisiana.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Cypress trees and
that could be.
flipping and
It's been a while since I've seen one on the Delta.
yeah.
But that would be.
You're still going to have warm water.
Mm-hmm.
Fish should be fat, feeding up. That one could be a lot of fun. Smaller tournament, so I know that Delta can get crowded down there, like the Atchafalachia. I know I didn't say that right, so go ahead and bash me on. And
But 40 boats. I mean, you're
40
talking 40
boats, so yeah, you're talking a local tournament in most places in the South, you know. So I think that'd be a good one. Go down there. It's going to fish similar to Florida, minus the grass. Fish, you know. You got the cypress trees and all that down there, so that could be a really good place to go.
Right on. I'm going to say abandon the boats, go straight north to Canada, jump on snow machines, and have an ice fishing tournament. No. How crazy would that be,
That
though,
would be
right?
something.
That would be something. That would make for some weird TV. Yeah, that would be like watching the grass grow.
Yeah.
Honestly, anywhere you go in the fall, I mean, I guess it would be considered fall down in Florida, but anywhere you go, you're going to be challenged. I would really like to see them go to, you talked about it earlier, like go up into the Missouri area. Do you think it'd be too cold to fish like Bull Shoals?
No, it would not be too cold. We keep saying weather plays everything. So last year, I believe it was last year when Johnny Morris, Bass Pro had their big
$1 million deal?
$1 million event, right?
yeah,
They had
yep.
the qualifying ones. And the $1 million one, I think, was in Table Rock in November, but in October was like the open, like your last chance. And that was on Bull Shoals. I would love to see him to go to Bull Shoals. Typically when you see the major tournaments go to Missouri, you see Table Rock, and that's because of the infrastructure there at Branson. And then, or Lake of the Ozarks. I forget which tour is going there this year, but we get a tour going there this year. I personally, it's nostalgic. My grandma lives 5 minutes from the boat ramp in Bull Shoals. I love it. It's still the biggest bass in Missouri, I think, has come out of that lake.
Oh, really?
And it's a phenomenal lake. It will challenge the anglers, especially because it can be super clear in high water and deep, and it's the last lake in the White River chain, so it fluctuates the most. It holds the water and super clear. But it would be a fun event. Another way they could do that is that this is still a 3-day event, right? The championship.
I believe so.
From what we know,
I forget when it was. It's been 15, 20 years maybe. I never watched it live, but I've watched it.
you're not that old.
No, I'm 22. I'll be 22 the rest of my life. No, but I've watched it on YouTube. You know how Bass posted. One year they did a tournament at Bull Shoals. They did like 2 days there, and then the next 2 days, or the championship day, they went over the Norfolk Lake, which is about 45 minutes east, right? And very, similar, right? Part of the country, very close, but the conditions were quite a bit different because the other lake, Norfolk, was a lot more muddy, right? Stained. So, you got that scenario there too, that you could, right? All those lakes are so close on that chain that you could, have multiple lake event.
So I'm gonna just show North Carolina some love here, and we all know how Jordan Lake is in November. We talked about it in an episode before or two. Which rule would you get rid of? Like if the MPFL got rid of the rule saying you can't use Alabama rigs, and you brought that to North Carolina in November, you'd see some sacks caught out of Jordan Lake, right? It's a challenge here, definitely in November, December timeframe. But I mean, if they don't go to Missouri, I'd like to see them go somewhere different. That other place. I mean, they're already going at different times of the year, so that's awesome as it is. But anywhere Georgia.
I got one for you.
Yeah,
Semi-local. It's been fishing really, really good.
the river,
Smith Mountain Lake.
Smith Mountain Lake.
Yeah.
Doesn't the BFLs in opens? Don't they hit Smith Mountain? No,
It's been a long time since any tournament.
that's Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been 3 or 4 years since.
So it's local 25, 20 pounds to win in a day.
I mean, with 40 boats though, even the Roanoke, man.
The problem with somewhere like that is there's just no logistical way to make it work. There's nowhere big enough to hold a weight and even a drive-through way in. There's no big enough ramps. There's nowhere
Yeah.
for anglers to stay. Like, that's one of the things. Like, there's a lot of places I'd really like to see a major event at that just they couldn't do it.
They can't
because
facilitate
they
it.
don't.
Yeah.
What it's become, there's no way to facilitate.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at like the elites or the opens, and you're talking about 100 plus anglers, plus support staff, plus all the moving pieces, that go with
Lodging,
that.
all that stuff.
Keep in mind, but the NPFL is a lot smaller organization, and they don't have it's a championship, 40 anglers, so they have a lot of flexibility where they could go. Let's just keep it in North Carolina. Like, there's a lot of good lakes, right?
Yeah.
Talk about Jordan's an option. You got Norman here.
Sutton. Could they go?
That's too
It's a little small.
little small.
No.
Of course, you got the rivers. You got Roanoke, and you could go.
You got the
Wilmington,
Yadkin chain.
Hillary,
You got all the Yadkin chain.
High Rock get another
High
event.
Rock, you got Lake James.
Yeah.
High Rock used to have the classic,
Yeah.
right? It's also supported. You can even go to Bugs Island or Gaston.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of options. I mean, I'd love them to come locally because then we can go check it out.
Come to Bugs Island, MPFL. I think you'll be.
Yeah, I want to see 8 pounds over 3 days win.
Now come to Jordan. I want to see 40 pounds.
Yeah,
on
that's
one
true.
day.
The
On
Jordan
one
win,
day.
potentially. That
But
time.
you gotta let them use the Alabama rig. No, I'm just kidding.
That is true. You'd have to let them use the Alabama.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
You're right, though. I mean, if you listen to Low Budget Live, I'll plug him in here. Like Luke Duncan talks about, like, they don't really have a huge staff that runs that tournament circuit. So logistically speaking, like, they might be able to facilitate a lot of other places that some of the other national circuits can't go to, and especially with a championship event with 40 boats over a 3-day period. I think that they can diversify a lot better than some of the other circuits can.
Here, my whole thing on it now, like, yeah, the last 2 years, but they're going to make a leap this year with $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to start seeing sponsors sending support teams. You know, like if you go to an elite event or something like that, Lowrance, Humminbird, they all have a trailer full
Yep.
of parts, and Mercury has technicians
Yep.
there, and Yamaha. With $100,000 on the line, those guys that are fishing for those organizations are going to start requesting that stuff.
And I hope they
So
do.
now, those numbers are going through. You're talking 125 anglers with needing somewhere to stay. You still have a staff.
Mm-hmm.
It might only be 10 people. Then you have 10 cameramen. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have wives. You have friends. You have family. You have support, like I was talking about anglers. Quickly, you get too big to where somewhere like Jordan, a 40 angler, maybe. They do it with the heavy hitters. They're able to do it. But there's no
Yeah.
weigh-in. So now you're talking, where can you hold the drive-through weigh-in? So now
Right.
you've got to rent a facility
true,
to
yeah.
be able to set your stage up.
Because you don't want to do it outside of November, pretty much no matter where you're at in the country.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because you don't know. It could be rain. It's going to be cold.
Thinking in some of the maybe off the wall lakes and all. I mean, this is down in Florida, but I don't know if Headwaters would work, but even like the Winter Haven chain,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of lakes and it's not big water, but with such a small field and all the canals that run in between, I mean, that's another option there.
I
too.
thought Headwaters, but the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, I think, would shut a lot of that off.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I didn't know they had that restriction
Yeah,
down there.
25-mile-an-hour.
That's like Lake Randleman here.
Yep.
Okay. Well, they got something good going for them. Ben, I think we talked about this before, and I think Pete may have asked you the question. From a business owner's perspective, from the 3 different national level circuits, if you were to invest into one of those companies, who would you invest into and why?
You're talking about an angler, like which angler?
Like when you look at, from the OneCast fishing perspective and looking to support one of the national level circuits, like what would your
Yeah, but are you saying sponsor the tour or sponsor an angler?
sponsor? What'd you ask him last time? Sponsor the angler or sponsor
Yeah,
the tour?
where would your money be?
Where would your money be spent?
as an angler to an angler? right now?
So there's two ways to frame this question. Is that one, I have the same angler who can go to any of them.
Right.
Right. Which one would I pick? Or if I have an angler, a potential angler from each of the major tours, which one would I pick? And in that scenario, right, that's going to come down to the individual angler and where I think he or hers performance could be. And basically, how much they do media and how much they can write, all the business stuff, right? Which one is a better person to work with business-wise because it fits what we're trying to do. But I think what you're asking is, if I had that ideal angler as a candidate, if I could choose which tour I want them on, I mean, it's going to be the elites if I had to choose one. Mm-hmm. I think the better question is, because the NPFL is basically right now, as of recording, the application's still open. So the more interesting question is that angler can, fish maybe the Invitational Series for MLF. He's fishing all 9 opens, or the NPFL. That one is a much more difficult question. And I would lean towards the NPFL because look, the payouts are more, it's going to get more visibility. I think the way they have it set up and planned, there's going to be more content creation and TV on the NPFL. Mm-hmm. And I say TV, I mean like streaming on YouTube or on their website, etc. Compared to the opens, even with the EQ, with the elite qualifiers, even with the invitational. So from a business perspective, if I'm choosing between those and the NPFL, I'm going to go NPFL. But the holy grail to me, and again, this is this is still some of my personal bias, but the coverage you get as an Elite Series angler, right? And right, we all know the Classic is so big, and yes, that's an individual event, but with the expo, right, and that angler is able to come to your expo because you're sponsoring him and he's working for you during that event, assuming he's not fishing or fishing the final day of the Classic, right?
Hopefully he is.
Yeah, I mean, ideally he is, and he's not in the booth, right? Because he's going to go win with the snagless jigs.
Let me tell you, as somebody who's worked Classics with anglers on staff who haven't made the final day, you don't want them in your booth.
Not very fun to be around.
They are not in great moods on championship day when they didn't make the cut.
Sure, buy the snagless jig, whatever.
Yeah. So I want an angler who didn't qualify but still has to be there, right? So that's kind of how it would come down to if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, it does make sense, and I think the point is the NPFL has just created more options, right? There's a lot of options out there between the opens, the elite qualifiers, the invitationals, the BFLs, the elite series, you name it. I mean, the fishing industry has exploded, and it's, in a positive aspect, it's created opportunities, and that's something to give them a lot of accolades on is how much we've created opportunities, not only for anglers but for business owners, for viewers, for everybody. And that's what we're trying to do here on the OneCast, is create more opportunities for the viewers to cast their questions at us, for us to talk amongst ourselves and bounce ideas off each other and make the industry better and continue to innovate and sometimes bring old school back too, which that I think that's important too. Let's not forget history. So but yeah, that's great, Ben. I appreciate you kind of jumping into that. I think we ran down the NPFL. Pete, you got anything on the NPFL?
Not on the NPFL, no.
Okay.
Nope. I think it's a good time to say, just be respectful of each other. Yeah. We have takes that are going to be hot takes that you might not agree with every day on the internet, Facebook. It's always a constant fight. Look, we're all out here doing the same thing. We're anglers. The three of us are a bunch of nobodies, and we'll admit it. We're a bunch of local anglers that are having fun. We just wanted to talk about fishing and get it out there. Hopefully we can entertain you all a little bit. But if you join our groups and stuff and you're having conversations, you can have those debates, but be civil about it. And that goes for anything you do online or anywhere. And I can tell you as somebody who manages the ambassadorship for OneCast Fishing for Ben, who's helped with other companies pick people who get on staff, whether it be pro staff or actual sponsorship deals. We look at that stuff. Like, I am running your name down. And if I see you MFing people and things and telling them their opinion's stupid and blah, 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 you're not somebody that many companies are going to want to work with. And I'm not saying PC culture and all that's the way to go. What I'm saying is, for Ben as a business owner, if he's going to invest in somebody, he wants somebody that's a professional, that's helpful. Think about all that stuff with the way you carry yourself online and in person. I know we'll probably get some comments about people asking how can I get OneCast? I'm an aspiring angler, blah, blah, blah. Number one, act right.
Yep.
And I hate to get on that soapbox, but it's so frustrating when somebody comes in and says, hey, I've only been fishing for a year. I want to try this. What do you recommend? And everybody says, oh, well, we recommend you do something else. Figure it out. Man, help that person out. You don't have to give them a waypoint.
That's right.
But you can tell them what kind of line you might throw with a Texas rig or a jig, or what you look for in a particular body of water, or whatever it is. And I've learned a lot and haven't asked, because it's not my style. My style is not to go and ask. When I came down here 4 years ago, where can I catch fish on Jordan?
Where can I catch
I
your
went
fish?
grinding, and I figured it out.
Yep.
And that's me. But some people are going to ask. Don't be afraid to say, hey, look for brush piles offshore. That's all you need to tell them. And they can go and figure it out on their own. But just be respectful to each other. We're all anglers. We're all doing the same thing. You see it, man, and that's one of the things I like most about the industry. And you guys got to see it at iCast. We'll get to see it at the Classic. Any show or event that you go to, these professionals across whatever they fish all treat each other extremely respectfully. Whether they like each other or not, they're always going to have people you do and don't like. But they shake each other's hands. They talk. You don't hear a bunch of back talk about people behind their back, because they know how hard it is, and they know that we're all out here doing the same thing. So I saw some stuff the other day and wanted to use what little platform we have to say. Just try to be respectful of each other, man. We're all fishermen.
We've all seen the trolls in the comments, and look, sometimes we have some hot takes that we know we're going to get some trolls on, but
live scope.
You start talking live scope, you get that to be
no co-anglers. No.
Yeah. But it's just, Pete, sum it up. Just be a good person.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the beauty of what we're doing, is we can create dialogue. So please create dialogue with us. Throw those comments in the section. Hit us up on any of the social media platforms. Bounce your ideas off us. That's what this is all about, is creating dialogue, creating engagement, hopefully giving you some amazing content to listen to. And, this is an opportunity for us to spread the good word of the industry. So, hey, go ahead, Pete.
Just if you're listening to us on iTunes or whatever it is now, Apple Podcast, I don't even know what they call it anymore, but throw us a review, good, bad, or indifferent. It helps us get better.
That's right. So
if you can take a couple minutes, just let us know what you think we can do better, what you'd like to see. We have plans for the future. We're kind of, these first 5 or so episodes are kind of scripted, just getting y'all ready, kind of up to date on what's coming. Our plan for our other shows, I think y'all are really going to like. But if there's stuff you want to see or hear or whatever, just leave us a review or a comment about it. Absolutely.
You guys will see us at the Classic. Be sure to stop by at the OneCast fishing booth. We will definitely have episodes leading up to that, but come check us out. And we've been more than happy to sell you a snagless jig.
Yeah.
Ben, you want to close us out?
Just play that dope music.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.